Okay, good. Yeah, quite a few people after lunch, surprisingly, on a Valentine's Day, right? So I'm not the only one who's out of Valentine's, so there are quite a few people around me who also have the same experience as me. So speaking of Valentine's, the topic that I thought we'll discuss something about today is zero trust banking. Okay, and speaking of trust and Valentine's, so let me start off with something that happened last month. Okay, so I came back home, from a fairly longish business trip. So came home early the next day, waiting for my wife to come home, having a nice dinner. And the evening, she calls me up and says, I'll not be home for dinner. And I said, why, what happened? And she says, this friend of mine, my classmate from my college in Nagpur, he's coming over. So we plan to go out for some coffee. So I said, okay, you're going out for coffee, but you will not be home for dinner. Okay, so the first alarm bells start ringing in. Okay, but I recover myself and say, okay, no problem, you can go along. But I was really waiting, and hoping that we'll have a nice dinner together. And she says, but I think the rumor around is that this guy is really depressed. It seems to be going through some separation. So I think it would be nice for me to spend some time with him. So the second alarm bell starts ringing, saying a guy who is undergoing separation and is meeting my wife, for coffee. But I recover myself pretty quickly, and then I say, okay, hang on, it's okay. I can send a driver over. He can pick you up from the clinic, and go out wherever you want to. And she says, no, but he told me that he's going to pick me up from the clinic. I said, okay, then what I'll do is let me know where you're going, and I'll pick you up after your coffee is done. She says, no, this guy told me that he's going to drop me home as well. So now the alarm bells are really ringing. And then I say, okay, it's okay, so but this guy whom you're talking about, I never heard his name, Arvind. You never mentioned him earlier. And she says, yes, I have seen him in college, but we never really spoke. So, but I have him on my WhatsApp group. And he told me that he's around. So I'll just speak. And I said, Sonal, that's my wife's name. You really need to think through this. I really don't trust this guy. Guys mostly have one thing on their mind. So you better be cautious. And then there was radio silence from the other end. She slammed the phone down the moment I said this. And then I remembered, after the phone kept down, is that the way that the discussion happened, my trust about this guy just kept on going down and down. Whereas just the previous month, I had met one of my friends, a female friends from my college over dinner. And that was perfectly okay with her. So the trust parameters are quite varying in our real life. And now let's try to put this into the banking context. Okay, I bank with a bank, all of us do, a bank that we trust, right? And a bank that we trust to not trust others, right? So when I go to a bank, and I put my money there, I want them to obviously take good care of my money. But at the same time, when I go to the same bank and I want to get a loan from them, and some of the documents are missing, I will say, oh no, trust me, I've been your customer for a long time, you know how I am. Okay, so that kind of conversation goes on. But the moment the bank decides to go ahead and give, let's say, a 10,000 crore loan to somebody, some large corporate, you start thinking, I hope that they verified everything before giving the loan. So we want the trust to us being high, but you also want the bank to actually not trust anybody else and be very, very diligent about it. It's a very interesting paradigm, when you go to banking. And now the same paradigm is coming into the digital banking world as well. So traditionally, we all know that we have been treating our entire bank as one single entity, keeping everything inside the perimeter, and saying, okay, everything that happens within the bank is all trustworthy, and everything that happens outside is not trustworthy. Okay, can this paradigm of trustworthiness hold true, in the modern digital banking world? So one of the parameters or one of the thought processes which are going on right now is called as zero trust. Where you actually say that you do not trust anybody. Okay, and then you start, building a very high barrier for you to be able to speak to somebody else. And then over time, you start building the credentials of the other person, which kind of breaks the barriers gradually down so that the communication becomes very open. And that's exactly what zero trust means, in the banking world or any kind of a technology world as well. But what does this mean for trustworthiness? So one of the companies who kind of does this kind of work into trusted IDs is a company called Nexus, whom I represent, and I've been working with them for the last 10 plus years now. And our single motive, for being in existence is to actually go ahead and enable trusted identities, for banks, for citizens, and beyond it. And that's what we do. From the picture, you can obviously see that it's not an Indian company, and it's a Swedish company. We have been recently merged with a French company, so we kind of have a European existence. And we have been helping banks globally, with our solutions. So not just the larger banks in the US, or in Europe, but also banks very close to us in India have been using trusted ID solutions from Nexus for a very long time now. So what do we mean by trusted ID? Because we all have been using IDs for a very long time now. We mostly use usernames and passwords. Some of us have evolved to use one-time passwords, etc. as well. But is that really trusted? Or what defines or what makes an ID trusted identity? We believe